Was there any evidence that you wanted to get in front of this jury that didn't get in front of this jury for whatever reason?
Scott's failed polygraph.
That's huge.
That's huge.
Yeah, but that never comes in.
That never comes in.
Never comes in.
Never comes in.
A lot of my cross-examination, though, of Scott was from the polygraph interview, just to see how he would react, to try to trigger those memories. I was walking a very fine line, and I knew that. Jeffrey Fogus, he stood up and he objected fervently to me even getting into it. But it was important. I mean, he failed that polygraph. He ended that interview because, and he lawyered up. That is critical stuff that never got to be in front of this jury.
But it never is.
I know.
It never is.
I know.
Right. So was there anything else?
Well, we were somewhat. I mean, we obviously weren't trying to, set up some type of mistrial or anything like that. We wouldn't do that.
Right.
But if Scott said something, because if he got an idea going back thinking about that interview that the GBI did of him, and he slips up and says something, then
door's
I don't
open.
know. He opens the door himself, then we're just going to run right through it.
Right. So what did you think of the testimony of the children? Like, was that how damaging did you feel that was?
I think after we felt fine after they testified, after all three of them.
There was a big reaction from folks online.
But the jury, after we talked to the jury, the things they thought that people thought they cared about, they didn't. I mean, so the kind of diagram that the state came up with about the late night phone calls, they didn't care about that.
Nope.
They didn't care about that. They cared about the timeline, they cared about the geofence, and some of the phone calls with Rusty, but not even all of them. They said, we didn't care about all that other stuff. So this trial that went on for a month, I mean, if they could have somehow honed in on it, it could have been so much shorter.
Plenty of jury cases, you don't never know what they're thinking. You can look at them and say, I think they're on my side, and they come out and they're not, or they are.
But you can look and see they're tired. And when they're tired, sometimes we could go much further on a witness, but we're not going to do that. We're stopping right here.
Now, talking about, let's get to, I want to go to the fourth soundbite that I have for you, which is about where the murder took place. And here's what the juror had to say about that.
For me personally, it didn't matter whether or not it happened in the house or it happened in the yard. I didn't really care where it happened. I feel like the house showed evidence that something happened in the house. But I personally think that it's not difficult to imagine that she could have moved the body. When we got out to the site, it felt like it was a bit steeper than it looked in the pictures. I know my own personal strength. I know I'm a bigger lady than she is, but I don't have any mental reservations. If I had to move something, with everything available, I would have figured out a way to do it.
All right, so and then we're looking right now at the video of where the burn pile is and the slope. And that's one thing she said. The slope was a little steeper than she thought when she went on the jury view to actually see the land. How important, this was a big issue for you guys, right? Because the prosecution is saying he's murdered in the house and then somehow gets to the burn pile. He's over 300 pounds, she's $120, and that's just, the math doesn't work there for moving that dead body.
Correct.
But this juror didn't care, because, and that's basically what the prosecution argued, right? You can use an ATV, I mean, I had someone online saying, well, maybe they used one of the horses or something. Like, no one knows.
Yeah.
Why don't we know that? Why don't we know that?
Michael, talk about the crime scene.
Yeah, I think it would be because of the crime scene. I mean, essentially when they got there, we were actually talking to Detective Hayes afterwards, and, when he was talking to the jury, he was more of, we just thought we were going to go, that it was an accidental death and all of that, and it wasn't going to be that big of a deal. And there are people trampling through the crime scene. They drove the crime scene truck through the backyard. And then nobody investigated it. They investigated the burn pile inside the house, and then they left it out. Nothing in between the house, nothing in the front, the barn. Things were just completely left because no one was in charge.
Literally, they would look like right here on the floor in front of this table, but they wouldn't look out on the table or on the couch. They looked for nothing. Just right there on the floor.
So what did you think the blood was from? Or the luminol.
We had evidence that there was a dog bite, and Amanda testified to that the week before he was bit by Molly.
Yeah, on his ankle.
And that would account for that. Is it possible that, I know you don't believe Melody did it, but whoever did it shot him at the burn pile?
That's what, when we were reading the stuff online, that's what people keep saying, and that makes the most logical sense. Shoot him at the burn pile, he falls in, that makes it simple. Then you get to the issue of, then why is there a bullet in the house? That's where I always come back to. And then you're relying on...
With no blood around the bullet.
No blood around the bullet.
We kept pointing to that over and over and over again.
So you've got this bullet in the house, and then it's like, well, Melody still, if she shot him at the burn pile, but then she planted the bullet in the house? That doesn't make any sense. So that's always been, for me, to me personally, that was doubt right there.
Would anybody ever benefit from your father being killed? And I was very frank. I said, well, yeah. I mean, my mom.
They discovered a bullet lodged in a rib bone.
At that point, did you suspect your mom?
Definitely.
I did receive confirmation later that my dad had been shot, and that was pretty much the sticking point for me. When I heard that, I thought, I mean, it just confirmed my beliefs.
So did I assume the worst? Yes, I did. Obviously, I did.
So in your own words, it's, when she said he is in the burn pile, what was your assumption?
That she had something to do with him.
Yeah.
That he was dead and burning
Because I don't, that he was dead and burning up.
I was saying all along, that's bad in this case.
Well, I mean, for us, from our investigation, the things we figured out along the way, we believed that Scott did it, and then we kind of backed up from there, and we saw that Chris became in concert with Scott. He had a financial motive, a benefit. I mean, he became the head of the estate after his father's death.
And Melody wouldn't get anything?
Exactly.
No, Melody wouldn't get anything under Georgia law, especially if she was convicted.
But if she's not convicted, this goes as an unsolved murder. Who gets the money?
That would have been fought out in probate then.
Okay, so they got to split up. So was there an actual, I mean, it's like a two-step process, though, for Scott or Chris to benefit from any of this, right? I mean, first, you've got to commit murder, get away with it, and then you've got to frame your mother.
True.
And that's what Melody believes happened here.
That is what Melody definitely believes. And part of also what John Luke was saying is, you know, why would they do that? But Scott started doing that the moment law enforcement arrived. I mean, you even heard from the chief of police, Chief Pinion, that he's literally just walking to the crime scene, just trying to check on his deputies, and he's just being fed information about affairs and a missing gun from the house, all within minutes of law enforcement arriving.
And that's, and obviously that's, did you talk to the jury about that afterwards? What did they think of that?
They didn't really say anything about that. That I just don't think that it really, the way the jurors explained it is said there was no direct evidence. This is actually from the foreperson. There was no direct evidence, but there was just so much circumstantial evidence.
From day one, from the early minutes of the 911 call, which let's think who made the 911 call. It was that man right there. He was in control from the very first minute of this case, Scott Farris. That would be somehow how your mother pulled off moving a 300-pound man in the house instead of the very obvious solution, which is that the one person on the property who could move him did move him, and that's you. You used that .357 to shoot your father, did you not?
No, because I never shot my father.
Did you throw that .357 into Lake Lanier after you shot your father?
No, because I have not seen that .357 since 2012, I think it was.
Did you shoot him at the barn, Scott?
I never shot my father.
Means, the ability. They started talking about those circles. They started zooming in on one person. And it's not Melody Farris. It's Scott Farris. He's sitting here today. And 20 pounds. I am 185 pounds. And that's all I have. I think it is the heaviest doubt of all.